Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to talk about all the books I read so far in November. So, as I'm filming this, it is November 19th. I'm gonna upload it on the same day. It's gonna be every book I finished up until November 18th. Also, excuse the lighting, I don't know what is up. I do know it's not summer anymore, so the sun is just doing its own thing here. And I can try to do something about the lighting, but yeah, either I'm all washed out or I am in the dark. So excuse the lighting. I read 8 books so far this month, and I think if everything goes to plan, I'm gonna be reading 8 other books this month too. So probably gonna end the month with at least 16 books. So with my mid-month wrap-ups, I don't talk about the stats, but I will be talking about these books star rating order. So I'm going to start with my least favorite and end with my favorite book I read this month. So starting with my 3-star reads, the first one is Cupid's Peak by Lee Ko. So this is part of her Holly Nights novella series revolving around different holidays. So this one obviously revolves around Valentine's Day. And this is probably my least favorite in the series. It was fine. I couldn't really connect to the main characters. Let's just start with the synopsis. Basically, this is a sports romance in a way, a hockey romance. You follow this girl who's an introvert. She really doesn't like to spend time outside. In fact, her job actually has her, she just doesn't like public spaces. I don't know if she has social anxiety, but if not, then she's definitely on the verge of social anxiety. And the only guy that she's ever loved was this guy that she had a big crush on in high school, and she used to tutor him, and she's never really stopped loving him. So every time he plays a game, she watches. And her twin sister is like the opposite of her. She's very outgoing and she wants her to find love. So she sets her up on a blind date, and who should be the blind date but the person she's had a crush on her entire life. And it turns out that he has been in love with her all this time as well. So this is like an opposites attract, mutual pining novella. The thing is, I didn't really believe that they loved each other all these years. Maybe from her point of view, not really from his point of view. And ultimately, it was a good time. I do really enjoy reading her novellas, but I've read better by her. So this is just like my least favorite in the series. My other 3-star read is The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. So I actually read this book for my Rebecca Yarros vlog, which I'll leave linked for you. And this was my least favorite in that vlog. This is my least favorite Rebecca Yarros. Basically, this is a dual timeline story where you follow 2 different love stories. The first one is this great-granddaughter of this very famous author who recently passed. And you follow this author who wants to finish her, like the only story that she's never finished. And the other timeline is her great-grandmother's love story, and actually the story that she never finished. During World War II, she fell in love with this American pilot. She's from the UK. And you follow that love story. And then current timeline, the author wants to give her a happily ever after, but we know that she doesn't have a happily ever after in that love story. So yeah, that is one of the reasons why I didn't love it. I really enjoyed the World War II love story, but I knew that was never gonna have an HEA. And I just didn't really connect to the love story that was in the current timeline. And I figured out why. It's because this book is like, I think 430 pages, which means both love stories only get 215 pages. And I think that's enough for the World War II romance, because during war, I can definitely believe that, maybe you fall in love faster. Also, that story also had letters in the current timeline, so you got more pages of that love story. Whereas for the contemporary romance, 215 pages just wasn't enough for that love story, especially all the other things going on. So I do still like Rebecca Yarros' writing. This just really wasn't my favorite by her. So I gave it 3 stars. Now for my 4-star reads, the first one is That One Night by Emily Rath. So this is the .5 prequel novella to Pucking Around, which I'm going to be reading later this month for the Goodreads Choice Award vlog that I'm going to be doing. Was this necessary to read? No. Was it really smutty and hot and sexy? Yes. Basically, you follow these 2 people who meet each other at a bar. One of them is a professional hockey player, and she's a doctor, and this is going to turn into a white shoes romance, but this is just this is just a man and like one man with one woman, one night stand type situation. They never tell each other who they are. She really doesn't want to. She does know that he's a professional athlete, and she wants to go into professional sports medicine. So that is how they're gonna meet again in Pucking Around. But like, this is just like a very hot one night stand. I did really enjoy his character, and I do believe that his character is gonna have also like the male romance in the white shoes part. So very excited about that. Overall, this was really nothing to write home about, but it really did what it set out to do. Just 75 pages of smutty goodness. So that is why I gave it 4 stars. It didn't try to be anything else. Whereas comparing it to the other novella I read, Cupid's Peak, that one tried to make me believe in the fact that they have been pining for years, and I didn't believe that. So that's why that one night got a higher rating. I am really, really excited to read Pucking Around though. The other 4-star read I had was Her Soul for Revenge by Harley LaRue. So this is the second book in her Souls trilogy, I think. Let me see. Yeah, in her Souls trilogy. So I was really, really looking forward to this one because I heard that a lot of people prefer this over Her Soul to Take. And I preferred Her Soul to Take over this one. But I still did enjoy it. I gave 4 stars, the same rating as I gave the first one. Basically, you follow Juniper, who in the first book you knew that she escaped certain death from this cult in town. And basically, as the story implies, she's out for revenge. So she makes this deal with this demon whose name is Zane, who we also met in the first book, to help her get that revenge in exchange for her soul. But obviously they fall in love. I did enjoy this book, but I do have to say the way Harley structured this trilogy, I don't think it works as well as she thought it would, because basically, at least this book followed the same, took place at the same time the first book took place. So the stakes weren't as high for me. Even though they had their own bad guys to deal with, I knew that in the end, as far as plot concerns, I knew that some things had already been dealt with because we already saw that in the first book. I think I connected more to the love story in the first book. This one, I did enjoy them. I did enjoy, obviously, watching their sex scenes. Harley LaRue just really knows how to write very good sex scenes. But ultimately, I don't think I really believed their love story. Yeah, and as I'm talking about this book, I finished it on November 5th, and I have forgotten a lot of things about this book. So it's not that memorable to me. And that is also one thing. I did feel like this book was very violent, like very gory, which usually I don't mind, but to me it just felt like, was that really necessary? I think that was my thoughts a lot of times on this book, but I still gave it 4 stars. It was an enjoyable time. I did read it pretty fast, and I am very much looking forward to the 3rd and final book in this series. Next is my favorite 4 stars, and I was so debating between a 4 and a 5, but ultimately I went with a 4, and it's Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. So a part of me is very sad that this I only gave a 4 stars, but I'm just gonna give you my reasonings. So first of all, this is the second book in the part of Your World series. It might be a duology, I don't know. But you follow 2 doctors, and they are ER doctors. So the first one is Brianna Ortiz. She just got divorced, or at least her divorce is almost finalized. And you follow Jacob, whose ex-girlfriend just got together with his brother, and they're getting married. So both have been dealing with some troubles in the past as far as love is concerned. He actually got a new job at her hospital. They begin as sort of enemies more on her part because she thinks he's here for like the chief position that was supposed to be hers, and he doesn't want that job. Plus he has very severe anxiety, which affects it affects the way he interacts with people, which a lot of people assume that he's rude, which he doesn't mean to be. And he thinks she's the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. So after a couple of bad interactions, he decides to write her a letter, to explain things from his point of view. And that is when she feels like an asshole. So she writes letters back, and they start a friendship. But he wants his family off his back because they keep constantly thinking that he's gonna have a breakdown because his ex is getting together with his brother. Plus, he truly wants them to be happy. He's such a good guy and his family has not forgiven his brother or his ex. And they refuse to go to their wedding, stuff like that. He thinks that once his family realizes that he's fine, that they'll forgive his ex-girlfriend and his brother. So he asks her to become his fake girlfriend. So she agrees, especially when she finds out that he is planning on giving his kidney to her brother, which is a separate, just beautiful storyline as well. First of all, I inhaled this book while I was reading it, and I had to do other stuff. All I wanted to do is read this book. All I was doing was thinking about this book, and especially like the first 200 pages were amazing to me. While I was reading those, I was thinking this is going to be a 5-star for sure. There's no shadow of a doubt. I laughed out loud so many times while reading this book, especially Brianna was so fucking funny. I really loved reading about her, and I really loved reading about Jacob and his anxiety. And he was just like this. He was such a soft boy. I really, really, really loved him. I thought he was such a good guy, and I just wanted him to be happy, and I wanted them to be happy. The problem with this book, and the reason why I ultimately gave it 4 stars and not 5 stars, is pretty much the latter half, or like the last 100 pages. Basically, this book has a lot of miscommunication, partly because of his anxiety. And at certain parts, she really seemed to understand his anxiety because her brother deals with the same thing. So she knows how to interact with him to make him feel comfortable, and especially social situations. So she should have realized, the fact that he was constantly just thinking about stuff. It made her character not as consistent because on one hand, she knew so well how to deal with his social anxiety, yet when it came to them and their relationship, it seemed like she didn't know what to do, and she handled it in all the wrong ways. There was so much miscommunication in this story, and she deals with trust issues, which are very understandable given her past, but that also took away from them actually being happy. So I think actually reading about them being happy, that was less than 50 pages of this book. Whereas them pretending to be together, them really loving each other, but thinking that the other one doesn't love them, that was just way too much of this book. I feel like that should have been balanced out a little bit more. I get it, but have at least one thing mended then have less miscommunication, or don't have the trust issue thing, but not both. Because ultimately, if you really look at it, these characters spent 250 pages thinking that the other one is not in love with them when they so clearly were. And that eventually became just way too frustrating for me. It makes me sad because, like I said, the parts I loved about this book, I really, really loved. I loved their letters back and forth. And yeah, I laughed out loud a lot during this book, which really doesn't happen to me a whole lot. And what I also really appreciate about this book is both characters were 35, which is different from the usual main characters that we get that are in their 20s. So yeah, this just really makes me sad at the end of the day, because I do feel like this could have been one of my favorite books if we had more pages of them actually being happy together. So yeah, but I did really love her writing. Like I said, I think this book was hilarious, and seeing the snippets from the characters from your part of your world really made me want to read that book too. So I'm definitely going to be reading that book in December, and I cannot wait. So moving on to my 5-star reads. The first one is The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. So I listened to this book on audiobook. Usually I have trouble with audiobooks, but this one I just decided, first of all, it's with memoirs. I usually can listen to them. I turned down the speed. I think I listened to this at 1.2 speed, so I could really concentrate on it. Plus, this book was fast read because the chapters were pretty short, and it was just snippets of her life. I think everybody and their mother has heard about this book. It's basically Britney Spears' memoir, her shedding light on a lot of things that happened in her past and the bad things people thought about her, and from her point of view. I really, really enjoyed this. Well, enjoyed is a big word. I appreciated this book. I've loved Britney Spears ever since I was a little girl. Obviously I grew up with her, and I loved her music. And then obviously I grew up with all those scandals that she talks about, and it was really interesting to hear her side of the story. It was heartbreaking at times, And one of my favorite songs, Every Time by her, that has always been my favorite song by her. But now listening to it, it automatically makes me cry. This book, ultimately, it's a very sad book. It was nice to hear her finally tell her story. And I really hope at the end of the day that after everything she's been through, she can finally live a happy life. And it was eye-opening, and I would highly recommend it. If you like Britney Spears or have loved her in the past, I would highly recommend this one. My next 5-star read, which I really hoped I would have it in my hands by now, but I don't know, Amazon lately is just not having its shit together, but Iron Flame. I read Iron Flame and I gave it 5 stars. I did an entire spoiler-filled vlog for this book. If you've read Iron Flame and you want to know my spoilery thoughts, definitely check that out. This is the second book in the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros, the first one being Fourth Wing. And I really did enjoy Iron Flame. I do have to say I was struggling in the beginning because I felt like, so this book is told in 2 parts, so part 1 and part 2. And the first half of part 1 was very boring to me. Nothing happened. And I just felt like we keep constantly seeing things and there wasn't really a whole lot of intrigue. And I was really scared that I wasn't gonna love this one as much as I loved Iron Flame or Fourth Wing. I do have to say, once they got to a other place, or at least from the second half of the first part, I really started enjoying this book. And especially when they got to a different location, it was just action scene after action scene after action scene. And I was very intrigued and I started just flipping the pages and wanting to know what else was going on. So I ended up giving it 5 stars. I don't know if I love it as much as Fourth Wing, but I did really enjoy it. There were some things I didn't really love, like there was some ex-girlfriend drama that I felt like was not that necessary. And like I said, the first half was pretty boring, but all the other parts I did really enjoy. And yeah, the way it ended, there is a pretty big older young adult series that deals with the same thing. So, and since it's a romance, I'm sure they're going to be fine in the end, but it's probably going to be heartbreaking, the journey to get to that. Hopefully, Rebecca Yarros knows how to handle that, and I am very, very excited to read the 3rd book. And she seems to be a pretty fast author, so hopefully we won't have to wait too long to get to that book. And then the last 5-star I read is another Rebecca Yarros, and it's In a Likely Event. So this is another book she published in 2023. So she had 3 books published in 2023. Like I said, a pretty fast author. This is a contemporary romance by her. It's a military romance. And this is the story of Izzy and Nate. And this story is sold in dual timelines, but this time you follow the same couple, but in different points in their lives, which I prefer because obviously, even though it's 2 different stories, it's the same love story. So the second love story doesn't take away because it's the same one. Basically, they meet at an airplane, but then the airplane crashes. So he saves her, and then it seems like fate constantly keeps bringing them together. So that is one timeline where you follow 10 years of their lives together, but technically 7 years of their lives together. And then the other timeline is Afghanistan in 2021, right before the Taliban takes over. And she's in politics now. He's still in the military. He's now special ops. They meet each other again, and she thinks he's been dead for 3 years and he doesn't want her to be in this dangerous place. But she's looking for something, so he has to help her, and they have to confront their past. And like I said, the flashbacks are of them meeting each other again and them trying to make it work, but never being the right time for them to be together. And I really, really love this book. I loved how much he loved her. I love the references to Lady Hawk, which I've never seen that movie, but I really love Charmed, and there was a Charmed episode that apparently was also inspired by that, which I didn't know. This to me felt like an epic, epic love story. I did really believe their love story, and I believe their HA, and I do think these 2 are soulmates. I think they're going to be together until the end of time. I did also think it was interesting reading the parts in Afghanistan. I remember that being on the news and people leaving and stuff like that, and having them be in the middle of that was very interesting. Yeah, I just really loved it. This is my favorite contemporary romance by Rebecca Yarros. And yeah, I also read this for my Rebecca Yarros vlog. So if you want to know more of my in-depth thoughts, definitely check out that video. So those were the 8 books I read so far this month. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. Also, I would really love to know your favorite book that you read. I gotta say, my two favorites were definitely the Rebecca Yarros books, so Iron Flame and In the Likely Event. I really love both of them. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you did, and thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.